Hello, and welcome to the Arts of Language podcast with Andrew Pudewa, founder of the Institute for Excellence in Writing, or as many like to say, IEW. My name is Julie Walker, and I'm honored to serve Andrew and IEW as the Director of Marketing. Our goal here is to equip teachers and teaching parents with methods and materials which will aid them in training their students to become confident and competent communicators and thinkers. So this week for our podcast, it's one of those, Andrew's out traveling, and I know we need to do another podcast. So I looked around the office to see who I could bring in. A couple weeks ago, I brought in Kristen, and we had a little conversation, and Laura. Well, today, when I looked out, who did I see but Heidi St. So Heidi, welcome to our studio.
Hey, I'm really excited to be here. It's fun to be sitting across the table from you, Julie.
I know, I miss you.
I miss you too. It's nice to get that good hug.
Yes.
We're like two ships in the night on the conference circuit.
You're busy going one way, and I'm busy staying home because I generally don't do conferences. I let Andrew do all of that.
Yep.
So when he sends you his love and greetings, of course he can't be here, but that's okay. We can still talk and we can still have fun.
Yeah, and we can talk about him. Because he's not here.
Oh, okay. What?
I love Andrew. Andrew knows I talk about him, so it's fine to talk about him on his podcast because I talk about him anyway. So it's a natural fit.
Well, let me ask you this question. When did you first meet Andrew?
It's been years. Oh my goodness, it's been years and years. But one thing that I love about Andrew over the years of getting to know him is he is one of the friendliest guys out on the circuit, and I can always just see him from across the room and run up and give him a big old hug. And he's been a good friend to me and my husband and to our family. So, yes, we just love him.
Yes. So to our listeners, if you are at a homeschool conference and you know Andrew's going to be there, don't be shy about going up to him and saying hello because he loves that.
He does. Yeah. I think that's really, and he knows all of my kids. So he remembers their names, which is no small feat.
With S.
Right. And they're alphabetical.
Okay.
Maybe that's why he can remember them.
Oh, you did that too. I did that too. I put my kids in alphabetical order.
Yeah,
kind of unintentionally.
Well, ours was unintentional until I think after the third one, and then someone told my husband, "Oh, your kids are alphabetical," and so then of course we had to finish that way until we got to Sydney, who was number 6, and then we were like, "What comes after SY?" Says yucky, like you can't even come up with anything. So we started back over with SA.
Oh, very good.
So number 7 is right back to SA.
Okay, so now that you've mentioned one, Sydney, for the sake of all your children, why don't you go ahead and mention them all?
Okay, so our oldest daughter, Savannah, is 26, and then Sierra, Skylar, Spencer, Summer, Sydney, and Sailor Jane is our number 7.
Love it.
So, they're great.
And you're still homeschooling?
We are. We still have 4 at home.
Okay.
That I am still homeschooling. And we have opened up a homeschool resource center in Vancouver, Washington. So a lot of my homeschooling now is being done out of that center because I write full time.
Yes.
So I got a few things going on my plate. So but definitely 4 kids. Spencer's a junior this year. So
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the clock is ticking.
Yes.
Yeah. Goes by fast.
So what kind of things are you nervous about with your junior? Anything?
Really not anything. I think when I was a younger homeschool mom, I was nervous about everything. With my first 2, I was nervous, how are they going to do in college? How are they going to do in the, quote, real world? On numbers, 5 and 6 and 7, not so much. Because I know, I think I have the gift of perspective now, and I'm really trying more to fold them where they're bent as opposed to here are the things that I think that you need. And that's what we're going to focus on. I'm really looking for their gifts and abilities and trying to give them opportunities that match up with those gifts and abilities.
Right.
And so that's fun for me, just to watch that. And part of the magic, if you will, of homeschooling is that parents have that opportunity to kind of really look into their children and have conversations with them about what they love and what they were born gifted to do, and then help them find out what God has uniquely gifted and called them to do on this earth. So I'm not really nervous about it really anymore. But I've been doing this for over 20 years. So
sure.
If you would have caught me 15 years ago, I'd have been like, what should we do? What should we do? I might start crying right now.
You got this.
But we're doing better.
Yes. And I think one of the things that I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about, if that's okay with you, is getting help when you need it.
Yeah.
So how does the busy mom, because that's you, How does the busy mom do it all?
I don't do it all. And I think that's really important for people to know. I don't know very many people that do it all. And people who usually think they're doing it all aren't doing it all, or they're stressed out and freaked out and they're the angry homeschool mom, you know? And I have been all of those things. And I think there was a stigma in the homeschool community, certainly when I started homeschooling, 20 years ago. You would hear people say, oh, you know, if you're homeschooling, then you're doing everything on your own. And I think that hurt a lot of people. I think it hurt a lot of moms in particular. I think it stressed us out when we didn't need to be stressed. And I'm always telling homeschool moms, if you need help, get it.
Right.
So whether you don't want to teach science, like for me, as soon as they get into high school, I do very few things with them that's just at home. I mean, there are some things we do like Bible, and we read missionary biographies with our kids all the way through high school. One of the things we do, it kind of builds our family, and we just love it. But when it comes to the upper level sciences, even upper level writing, things like that, I'm looking for help. I look for good tutors, or I put them in co-op classes. But the cool thing about homeschooling is I get to determine who's teaching my children. And I think that is kind of the big deal, right? Because the Bible says in Luke 6:40 that when a student is fully trained, he'll be like his teacher. And that tells me that whether I'm teaching that subject to my child or whether they're being taught by somebody outside our home, I need to know who that teacher is, because at the end of the day, that teacher's going to have influence in the life of my child. And that's the really big deal to me and Jay, is that we know who is influencing our child and that they are using that influence in a way that honors God.
Now, you're a writer. We are the Institute for Excellence in Writing, so
Yes,
I have to ask you
indeed.
this
No, don't
writer
throw me any
question.
hard grammar questions, please.
Oh, no, I won't.
I have an editor.
Exactly.
You could pitch it to her.
Well, and Andrew has this whole talk on, but what about grammar? And he says that everyone needs an editor. He has an editor. We all have editors, so no, it's not that question.
Good.
It's this question. How are you teaching your children to write?
So I start out by, actually, when they're very little, I just let them, I want my kids to love writing. I don't want it to be ruined for them. And I've noticed that in our family, we have a couple of natural writers. So they're just naturally, they're wanting to write stories. They're creating books that they're stapling together. So usually for the first several years of homeschooling, that's what I'm letting them do. And then when I start the formal writing process, it's very slow. And when they get into, this year, our kids are taking the student writing intensive, and we've done that with several of our children. So I love that I can take them. I want to see if they're good at it. First of all, do you love it? And if I notice that they love it, then I'm going to give them opportunities, just like I would with my kids who love music or who love science or whatever that is, so that those kids can pursue that. So, so once they get to where I think they need to learn from somebody besides me, because I love to write. It's one of those things, like if I loved math, I'd probably teach it all the way through high school, but I actually don't love math. So as soon as my kids are in like 7th grade, I'm out. They're doing it either through an online or in a co-op or something. I actually love writing, and I'll teach them writing until they get to be at about 7th or 8th grade. And then I'm looking for either students or co-ops. And of course, I love IEW. It's kind of how you and I got connected all those years ago. So, it's been good for our family.
Well, and when you think about teaching math, and you and I our stories are very similar in that regard.
Yeah.
Teaching math is sometimes easier if you love math. So if I loved math, I'd be happy to teach math, because guess what? There's only one right answer.
That's right.
And writing is not so.
No, it's not.
And sometimes 7th grade, it's about that time when the kids start challenging you, just because that's the phase of life that they're in. And sometimes it's just easier to let someone else be the sounding board.
I totally agree. This is a really funny story. So, I travel for a living. And I was at the airport the other day, and I've gotten to know the ticket agent at Delta. And so she saw my husband and I coming through. We were there the weekend before with our daughters, and now we're back this weekend. And I don't know how this happened. Oh, because our suitcases were so heavy. She's like, man, what's in here? And my husband said, well, my wife is an author, and these suitcases are full of books. And she said, what do you write about? And I said, mothering. And she kind of stopped processing my reservation. And she said, I have a 15-year-old boy, and he used to be so sweet, and I loved him so much. And now all of a sudden he doesn't want me to pull up in front of the school and pick him up anymore. I had to park 2 blocks away, and, tears in her eyes. And she was like, I feel like I'm doing something wrong. I said, no, you're doing something right. It is the goal of boys aged 14 to 19 to emotionally paralyze their mothers. And it sounds to me like it's working. Like he's doing exactly what he's supposed to do at this age. And so when I saw her this time, when I came back through again, she was like, "You're the Mom Strong mom." She's like,
nice.
That just encouraged me so much. But I think moms need to be honest about what we can do and what we can't do. Right. And to say, you know what, this is actually okay. If there's a subject that is either, I'm always telling moms, don't sacrifice your relationship with your child over an academic pursuit, right? I don't want to sacrifice my relationship with my 14-year-old daughter over an algebra problem. Right. I just don't, I'm not willing to do it. And so as soon as I realize this is going to be a problem, this is going to be friction, I'm going to look for help. And at the end of the day, when our kids are done with high school and we've homeschooled them and we did the best we could, by the grace of God, they're going to call us for crock pot recipes. They're going to want to meet us for dinner. They're going to bring their grandkids over. We're going to have life. And I think you can get caught up in the daily of homeschooling and forget that you're actually raising parents for your grandchildren and that there's more coming and it's even better.
Right.
And so don't sacrifice your relationship with your kids over an academic pursuit. I think finding help, and you can do that without putting your kids back in school, finding help I think is absolutely critical.
Right. But for some of those moms, you mentioned you can do it without putting them back in school, but sometimes that's the answer too.
That's right. Yep, that's the answer. And again, if you're going to put your kids in school, I would go back to what I said before, which is a student will be like his teacher.
Right.
Know who is influencing your child. I think that is so important. Know the worldview. Education's not neutral. We teach from a worldview. We can't help it.
Right.
And so knowing who that is, being willing to engage in the process with your children, stay in there with your kids. My very best friend in the world did not homeschool her kids. And it wasn't a deal breaker for our friendship because we realized she was doing what was right for her family. I was doing what was right for my family.
Right.
And it shouldn't be deal breakers in friends. I think we can agree that we're trying to do the best thing for our kids. But I know a lot of moms sit on the fence and they just think, oh, I could never do that. And I think a lot more of us can do it than think we can do it.
Right.
And there's so many resources available now than there were even, back when the dinosaurs roamed the earth and Abeka wouldn't sell to homeschoolers. So some of us remember that.
Right, exactly. So you mentioned Abeka not selling to homeschoolers. I am required by our schools division senior educational consultant to mention that IEW actually has a schools division, so more and more schools across the United States are adopting IEW as a part of their schools.
Which is so awesome because it's such a great program. And if you're going to run a school, you should have a great program.
Exactly. Right. So you can influence your children.
That's right.
To become the best that they can be.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
So I can't imagine that any of our listeners do not know you, Heidi, but just let's assume for a moment that they don't. Please share with us some of the books that you've written.
So in 2009, I wrote my first book called The Busy Homeschool Mom's Guide to Romance. I kind of wish I hadn't titled it The Busy Homeschool Mom's Guide. I wish I would have just titled it The Busy Mom's Guide to Romance because it's really not just for homeschoolers. It's for anybody who's married and trying to have a life.
Yeah. I have a copy of that on my shelf, a signed one.
Yes, you do. And that book really, that's kind of the flagship book for me, just my heart really in a nutshell, which is really to strengthen families and to say, listen, it's not worth sacrificing your marriage on the altar of homeschooling, on the altar of working outside your home, and whatever it is that's straining your marriage, to keep a focus on how important your marriage is and to encourage moms to do that. So most of the people that read it will tell me it's like sitting with me across the table. It's sort of my style of writing. I tend to write like I talk. And then the next book was The Busy Homeschool Mom's Guide to Daylight, which is all about just, people ask me all the time, how do you raise 7 children and do all the things that you do? And the answer is pretty simple for me. I believe in grace and in God's call on us as individuals. So if God has a call on Julie Walker for a particular thing, he's going to give you the grace and the ability and the energy to do what he's asked you to do. Exactly. And I think the same is true of all of us. Yep. And so there are sort of basic principles in place in the book, but it's also just really encouraging. And then Jay and I have written a series of Bible studies for families called Firmly Planted. And those, I think we've done 4 volumes. You guys helped us print those one season. I remember in particular, which was a huge blessing. And that's another thing I just love Andrew for, because he heard we were in a pinch and he was like, how can I help? Which is totally him. And then I signed a 7-book contract with Tyndale. 7
books. I knew about this new book that you're about to mention.
Yeah.
I didn't realize this was the first of 7.
Yeah, it's the first. The first 3 came out together. So I wrote Becoming Mom Strong, How to Fight with All That's in You for Your Family and Your Faith. That came out with a Bible study, with a 6-week Bible study companion and a journal.
Oh, okay. Nice.
And then I'm in the process right now, if you can believe it. So that book released on September 19th. And
National
I'm in the
Talk Like a
process.
Pirate Day. I just have to mention
I
that.
love Talk Like a Pirate Day. And actually, we celebrate that at Krispy Kreme.
Okay, great.
Because if you go down there and you dress like a pirate and you talk like a pirate, they give you free donuts.
Right.
Which who doesn't want that?
Right.
So the next book I'm actually working on right now, and that'll be out this time next year. So,
Wow.
And then obviously several more coming after that. But I love the gift of writing. My literary agent told me something which really has resonated with me. Like 3 years ago, he said, the reason he loves publishing is because publishing a book multiplies the ministry of the message. Mm-hmm. So if you can get a book, like I can't say everything that's on my heart and reach everybody who could ever pick up a book in a library or at a coffee shop or at the airport. But if you write a book, there is that possibility. It multiplies the ministry of the message. And that really resonated with me. So I think I consider myself a speaker first and a writer second. I really love speaking. I love writing too, but I'm a speaker who writes, not a writer who speaks. So I think knowing that about myself was probably really good going into such a big commitment with Tyndale.
Right.
But I love working with Tyndale. They've been phenomenal.
Great.
So
And as a speaker, you're out. That's why you're here in Tulsa.
Yeah.
Doing a Fearless conference.
That's right.
For our community.
Yeah.
And then you've got several other things on the docket next year. You have some homeschool conventions that you're going to.
Yep, that's right. And then the Mom Strong Conference. And I'm booking out. I mean, I'm booked out now till 2019.
Nice.
So it's exciting. Jay and I, my husband, travels with me. And most of the time we take our kids, whoever's at home and doesn't have lots of classes or something that they're doing. And our grown kids come with us too, which has really been
Really
great.
fun.
Yeah, I love having adult children. Well, I know you do too. It's just something they've known you since forever. They know your good points and your weaknesses, and they're just I feel like wow, I just spent the last 20 years raising some of the best people that I know and that I love to hang out with. There's nobody I'd rather hang out with than my kids and my man. So it's good. We try to keep it in the family and do it together. So we
wonderful.
love that. Yeah.
So to order these books that you mentioned, or just kind of in general, do you have an online presence, Heidi?
Yes, I do. You can find me at thebusymom.com or HeidiSt.John.com. And I'm on Facebook as Heidi St. John, the Busy Mom. You can find me on Instagram. So pretty much I'm all over the internet. And the new Homeschool Resource Center that we opened, a lot of people are looking at that as a model and interested in starting their own. And you can find that at fphrc.org. It stands for Firmly Planted Homeschool Resource Center.
Nice. Very good. Well, one thing we like to do when I grab someone down the hall, I like to do giveaways.
Ooh.
So because of our conversation today, Heidi, because of you, I would like to give away to our listeners, well, it's kind of a drawing. They're going to have to sign up, and you can go to the show notes and click on the link that says enter the drawing to win one of 7, because you have 7 children.
Yes.
Copies of the Student Writing Intensive. So we will give away to 7 lucky listeners in honor of your 7 children, whatever level they want of the Student Writing Intensive.
That is awesome.
Of Heidi St. John.
Very nice.
You're
I'm
so
excited.
kind.
Well, you are so kind to be giving something away that didn't cost me anything in my name. So thank you.
That's great. Well, as always, our time together is so short, but so sweet.
Yeah, I really appreciate you having me on. It's so much fun to see you, sit across the table from you.
Yes, a real
Be
treat.
in your neck of the woods for a change.
Yes, and hopefully we can do it again. Not so long though this time.
I would look forward to it.
Okay, great. Thanks so much for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more, you can subscribe to this podcast in iTunes or Stitcher, or just visit us each week at iew.com/podcast. Until then, on behalf of Andrew Poudois and the team at IEW, I thank you for the privilege of allowing us to partner with you on this educational journey toward better listening, speaking, reading, writing, and thinking.